poured the iron and steel that won 2 world wars and won lots of other things in addition. With today's announcement, Pennsylvania will play a key role in building the arsenal of freedom to defend our nation in the modern world. We have things happening in this state. I think really people don't know what's happening in Pennsylvania. People aren't really, literally, they're not able to even fathom what's going on. And I'm just sitting back there. I thought I was very well aware of it. And then I'm meeting people, very well-known people, and they're saying what they're doing here. We got to get the word out a little bit because this is very much of a miracle, very much of a miracle. Highly respected people. The talent and innovation in this room will keep America safe for many years to come. They are very advanced, the most advanced equipment anywhere in the world. Under the Trump administration, we've invested a record $1 trillion in the United States military, and next year, I'm proud to say, and Pete, we have to get moving on this, $1.5 trillion we're going up to. We need it. It's all made in the USA, so it's not, as Sean, it's not fully a cost. You know, it's cost. We got to take something, but it's called jobs. And when you think of it that way, but 1.5. I built the military in my first term, and I used it in my second term. And as you know, Venezuela was actually 48 minutes, but let's call it 1 day. And we've paid for the cost of that war 50 times over, more than 50 times over already. And they've been great, the people from Venezuela. The leadership has been fantastic, and we're working with them, and the big oil companies are moving in. They've made more money for themselves in the last few months than they made in the history of the country. And it's just properly, it's being properly run. They have oil. They have so much oil. You find the oil there, Pete, you just look down on the ground and you say, oh, that's oil. Just drill it. There's very few places that have anything like that. But we have a great relationship with the leadership. We've worked with them very closely, and we're bringing all the big American companies in, and it's been very much of a miracle. Millions and millions of barrels a day. The spirit of our armed forces is the highest it's ever been, with every branch setting records for recruitment. And I will tell you, during the campaign, when I was running against Kamala, she had no clue, but Joe had no clue either. That's why they got him out of there. I had to run against 2 people. Everyone else runs against 1 person. You do well. Joe wasn't doing too well. He was down like 28 points. So they said, let's replace him. That's like replacing a fighter. You're doing great against a guy. I said, let's put somebody else in. Fortunately, she wasn't much better than he was. And somebody said she's leading in the polls. That's not possible. But if she is, that's fine. You know, you got to go out. You got to win. But what's happened with the election, this was an amazing election. Think of it. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by a lot. We won 82%, 87% of the counties in America. That's a big one. We won the Electoral College. We won everything. But all 7 swing states, the big thing was, could anybody ever win all 7? We won all 7 swing states, and we won them by a lot. So it was a great, great achievement. But when it came to joining the military, we had vacancies, empties. We had a situation that actually it was remedied largely, Pete, I think on November 5th when we won. It was even before we took office. It was remedied to a certain extent, and when we took office, so now we have overflow crowds trying to get into the military, and that includes our policemen, our firemen, anybody with a uniform on. They were very ashamed of our country, and now they're very proud of our country. And we're setting recruitment records like we've never had before. In fact, it's a great time if you want to expand the military a little bit. It wouldn't be bad because we have unbelievable, talented, in good shape, in unbelievably good shape. You know, we had something pass in the United States Supreme Court. It was called merit, and nobody thought that was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen, actually. We're trying to get it. And everything now in our country, again, is based on merit. Getting into colleges is based on merit. When you have somebody with great boards, great marks, all A pluses and A's and the highest board marks, and then doesn't get it because somebody with far less capability gets in, it's nasty, but it's, you know, our country was built on greatness, and it was based on success. It was based on merit. And now we have that, and that includes the military. And the people that we have in this military, you can send most of them to Hollywood, and they could become like movie stars. They are unbelievable, and you saw that in Venezuela. I met them backstage, and these are people that are. It's a whole different ball game. So I just want to thank everybody. That was a decision. That was a tough decision to make. And it took courage to make that decision. Nobody thought that was going to be made, but they gave us back our beautiful merit system, and now the best people get into the best positions, they get into the best schools, they get into the military. We actually have strong people going into the military now as opposed to people that aren't strong or that shouldn't be there. And it's like, I call it central casting. Washington, D.C., we're using the military in there, and our crime rate's down 92%, and it's gone from an unsafe city to one of the safest cities, the capital, one of the safest cities anywhere in the country. Restaurants are booming. The restaurants were all closing. People were afraid to go to a restaurant. We took out over 5,000 criminals. We got them out of here. We got them, sent them back to their country. Many of them came through the Biden open borders, which was insanity. We got them out of this country, and we did a real job in Washington, D.C., and I will say Memphis is a similar kind of a thing, a little bit. We started it a little bit later, but they're down in crime 78%. And New Orleans, Louisiana, the governor called me up, Jeff Landry, great guy. He called me and he said, we have a problem. We have the Mardi Gras coming up, and this place is loaded up with crime. And we sent in the National Guard and others, and it was the safest, that is on record, the safest Mardi Gras on record. They've never had anything like it. He called me two days later. He said, I've never seen anything like it. It's a terrible expression. He said, nobody was killed. Well, that doesn't sound so good to say, frankly, in one way, but in another way, many people would be killed during Mardi Gras consistently, and now it was the safest they've had, he said, in 67 years, so it's pretty good. But we're going out for the $1.5 trillion this year, and I think we're going to be able to get it. And we're going to get it because we have so much money coming in. The tariffs have made this country so rich, and they've made this country so competitive. In order to not pay tariffs, people are coming out and they're leaving Mexico, and they're leaving. In fact, it was just announced that Toyota is leaving Mexico. Toyota is going to build one of the largest plants in the world, car plants in the world, in Texas. But many, many companies, they left us and they went to Mexico, Canada, Japan, Germany. They went all over the place, South Korea. They're all pouring back. The car plants, the AI plants are all coming back. If they don't, they have to pay taxes. The chips, we had this ridiculous CHIPS Act where you give billions of dollars to a company and they didn't even know what the hell to do with it. You give them billions of dollars, they say they're going to build. Nobody knew what to do with it. And of course, the standards were so high. If you weren't transgender, as an example, you didn't qualify. So they get the money, they'd look all over for transgender people to run the company, large portions. They couldn't find them. They weren't into the chip-making business, I guess, right? They had other things on their mind. But this was the Biden fools, those idiots that almost destroyed our country. But we're also reasserting the fundamental truth: to be a strong nation, you must be a manufacturing nation, manufacturing jobs. When you see these plants start to open, so we're building now at a record that we've never even, I don't think any country's ever approached this record. Again, we have $19.2 trillion being invested, and there's never been anything like it. You go back years and years, and it's China had the record with $3 trillion, and we're at $19.2 trillion. There's never been anything like it. These are going to be starting to open in 6 or 7 months. I mean, it's unfair because, you know, whoever the next president is going to be sitting up here someday and say, what a great job I did. What a great job. I did the greatest job, Jamie. He's going to be talking about what a brilliant president he is. And I'll be home and I'll be saying that, son, like, because we did the job. We did the job, and we're clearing every obstacle to building the defense industrial base. And so many people, I was shaking hands backstage, they just came up and they said, we couldn't even function 2 years ago in this country. We couldn't get anything built. We couldn't get approvals. We couldn't do anything. And now we cannot imagine the change. They said 5 or 6 of the people are building defense-oriented things. They said, we have no idea how this has happened to this extent. He said, we look forward to going to work. We get our approvals fast. We came up with a concept like on AI and other things that are big. Rather than going to our old, very old and fragile grid, we maintain it, but it's old and not up to date. It was let go by a lot of people that were in my position. They shouldn't have done that. But I came up with the idea to let them build their own power plants. So they're building their own power plants. So, you know, people would complain about the grid, but actually they're giving their excess electricity back into the grid. It's a phenomenal thing. But they're coming up with power. They're doing their own. They're really becoming a utility. They're becoming, actually, in addition to AI, they're also becoming utility. And they're building some of the greatest power plants anyone has ever seen. We don't want wind because it's terrible, doesn't work. These countries that go to wind, you go to wind, you lose your way, you go out of business. Look at what's happening in the United Kingdom. Wind all over the place, doesn't work, too expensive. Everything's made in China. And remember, you have to replace them after 8 or 9 years. You know, it's wonderful if they were there, but you got to replace them all the time because they wear out. The salt water kills them. It's ridiculous. And we have the oil and gas. We have a number of people back there with the nuclear. Nuclear is hot. It's become safe, and we got to keep it safe. But it's become safe. But we have tremendous new things happening, and some of these power plants that are being used for AI and other things that they're building are so far advanced from what you're used to. When you look at Con Edison, you look at the old companies, it's fine. They get the job done. But these are tremendous advancements that nobody would have ever come up with except for this group of seriously brilliant people. After decades of foreign countries ransacking Pennsylvania and all of our country, they ransacked our country and stealing our jobs, I imposed historic tariffs to protect the American copper, aluminum, steel, and many, many other projects like cars. And because of that, they're all coming back. This could have been done by a president if he knew you wouldn't have a Taiwan making 100% of the chips. I think by the time I leave, we'll have almost 50% of the chips being made in the United States, worldwide. They're moving here like you wouldn't believe it. With no investment. I'm not giving people billions of dollars. I'm not saying to some chip company, here's $30 billion, good luck in finding a site. That's what this stupid CHIPS Act was. Hundreds of billions of dollars just wasted. Half of the people never even used the money. I didn't give them 10 cents. I said, you're going to pay nothing for a year. After that, you're going to pay 10%. After that, you're going to pay 25%. Gives you 2.5 years to build your factory. If you don't build it by that time, you pay 200%, meaning you're sending chips in. You have a 200% tariff. They're building like crazy. And the biggest chip company in the world is building, and they just announced that they're expanding by another $200 billion. They're spending most of their money in Arizona, a great place to invest. But they're spending an extra $200 billion. It's the biggest chip company in the world. But we passed the largest tax cuts in American history. We delivered 100% expensing. That's a big one. That's, I think, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country in my first term. We then got hit with COVID, but even including COVID, we did a great job in COVID. We never got credit for it, but every country was ripped apart by that disaster. We know where it came from. It came from Wuhan, and I said that. But we were all ripped apart, and China got hit very, very hard. It was delayed. They got hit very hard at the end. But it was a terrible thing, but we had the greatest economy in history. And before COVID, nobody had ever seen anything like it. But if you just took those 3 years and look at what we're doing now, we're going to blow them away. I mean, unless some horrible event happens, which is always possible. You know, we always have to at least think about the horrible events. Who would have thought that COVID could have happened? A thing like that could have happened. But we delivered 100% expensing, and that expensing, I think, where you write it off in 1 year. I have friends that bought things that, frankly, they didn't need. I have a friend that never flew on a private plane in his life, and he ended up going out buying a very expensive private plane because of expensing 1 year. And a lot of you're building your plants, more importantly than an example like that. You're building your plant and equipment. Jamie can expand his bank, write off everything in the first year. And you're doing a nice job. Your building is beautiful, by the way. It's great. You can write that sucker off in 1 year. Can you believe it? Now that stands up there, that steel. I want to know that steel contractor. He did a good job, a great job, actually. But we delivered 100%, and I felt it was very important to do so, and it goes for a 10-year period. So it doesn't just, I actually want to make it for 1 year, because I figured everybody's going to come. 10 years is too long, but we had a couple of senators that really wanted, including a man named Lindsey Graham, who we love. And Lindsey, we pay you respect, because he was some special guy. Lindsey, David, was a big proponent of 10 years instead of 1. In other words, you could use this for 10 years instead of 1. I said, but Lindsey, 10 years is too long. It lets them, it gives them too much time. He said, oh, no, we have to do this. I said, no, go ahead, Lindsey. What the hell do you know about business, Lindsey, right? But he was great. We're going to miss him, right, David? We're going to miss that guy. What a way he was. You know, he's a guy, I'm just thinking, he's a guy that some people you don't appreciate until they're not here, right? And you just saw all the quality that he had. He got things done. He could even deal with Democrats. If I needed a Democrat, I could go to Lindsey, and Lindsey would take him out and wine him and dine him and say, I got him for you, right? There aren't too many people could do that. David and I know it very well. But the expensing was so important. I think it's really what led to the tremendous success, because we had it in the first year and in the first administration. And I think that was what led to the single most important thing, I think, in terms of investment was the 1 year expensing. I think people were building, sometimes maybe they shouldn't have been, but they were building at levels, and then it caught up. We passed the largest regulation cuts in American history by far, and we unleashed American energy, including Pennsylvania oil, gas, and clean, beautiful coal. We're back in the coal business. We have so much technology and changes have been made in coal. And in the Trump administration, you're not allowed to use the word coal without preceding it by the words clean, beautiful. And Chris Wright, who you know so well, and Doug Burgum, they've been a fantastic team. And they were making a speech. And I said, nobody can say coal without preceding it with clean, beautiful. But this whole speech was on coal. And they kept saying, clean, beautiful coal, clean, beautiful coal. And I said, okay, it's enough. You know, but it is. It's and look, you know, I hate to say it, but it's what China uses. They're building now 58 massive coal plants. And, you know, they're responsible for building the windmills. And I said, how many windmills are they building in terms of using on their land? John, I want to know, if you see any, let us know. They got coal plants all over the place, but they build the windmills. But the only one they have that I know of is one that they want to use. They use it they don't use it in terms of energy. They showed people, look how beautiful this is, as those poor suckers buy those windmills and lose their ass. But it's a terrible form of energy, most expensive form of energy. It's intermittent, doesn't work, and in my opinion, it kills the environment. It kills the birds, but it's visually, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. And I'm proud to say that we have approved almost none, I think none, but we are, everybody's under an order. No we don't want the windmills. We don't want them, and let somebody else use them. But everybody using them is in very big trouble. They're in energy trouble because they don't work, and very expensive, most expensive form of energy, and they don't work. And I've been saying it for 4 or 5 years, and people still buy them. Maybe not quite like they used to, but people still buy them. It's crazy. But we unleashed American energy, including the Pennsylvania oil, and the Pennsylvania oil is doing unbelievably well. We saved the great American company, U.S. Steel, and I worked with Selena Zito. I don't know if Selena's here. Selena here? She's so... Where's Selena? Where is Selena? I love Selena. Where is she? She's queen of the Rust Belt. But you're no longer the Rust Belt. You're really the Money Belt. I have a new name. Selena, are you here? Come on up here, Selena, will you? She's the queen. She is the queen of the Rust Belt. Now she's the queen of the money. And be careful. Don't fall down the stairs like Biden. Come on, Selena, get down here. Grab her, everybody. I want to show you a woman that knows what she's doing. You know? She knows what she's doing. I had no idea she'd be here, but anything having to do with Pennsylvania, any of these great states, she's around. Well, Selena, I want to thank you. You're really a talent. That's only because she writes so well about me. You know, if she wrote badly, I'd say